You have something important to do right now. You have known about it for days, maybe weeks. You know exactly what needs to happen. You are completely capable of doing it. And yet here you are, doing literally anything else, reorganizing things that did not need reorganizing, checking the same apps you checked 7 minutes ago, watching one more video, reading one more article, telling yourself you will start in just a little while. And the most maddening part is not that you are not working, it is that some part of you is watching all of this happen and cannot figure out why you keep doing it. Because you are not lazy. Lazy people do not feel this specific kind of guilt. They do not feel the low-level dread that follows you around when something important stays undone. You feel that dread. That means you care. So why do you keep avoiding the thing you care about getting done? The answer to that question is not what most people think it is. And once you understand the real psychology behind procrastination, what has felt like a personal failure for years is going to start making complete sense. The single biggest lie that the entire productivity industry has told you about procrastination is that it is a time management problem. It is not. Researchers at Carleton University, who have spent decades specifically studying procrastination, concluded that procrastination is fundamentally an emotion regulation problem, not a scheduling problem, not a discipline problem, not a problem with your to-do list or your calendar or your morning routine. It is your brain trying to escape an unpleasant emotional state by substituting a more immediately rewarding one. The task you are avoiding is not just a task, it is attached to a feeling, anxiety about whether you will do it well enough, fear that trying and failing would mean something painful about who you are, overwhelm at the size or complexity of what is ahead, resentment about having to do something that feels forced or meaningless. Your brain is not avoiding the work, your brain is avoiding the feeling that comes with the work. And understanding that distinction changes everything about how you approach the solution. To understand why avoidance feels so natural, you need to understand what is happening in your brain when a task triggers negative emotion. The amygdala, your brain's threat detection system, does not distinguish between a physical threat and an emotional one. When a task is linked to feelings of potential failure, judgment, or inadequacy, the amygdala flags it as a threat. Your nervous system generates a genuine avoidance impulse, and in that moment, doing something else, anything else that does not carry that threat signal, produces immediate relief. That relief is neurologically real. It is a measurable reduction in cortisol and a small but noticeable uptick in dopamine. Your brain just learned that avoidance works. And a brain that learns something works will do it again. Every time you escape the task, you reinforce the neural pathway that connects that task to the avoidance response. You are not being weak. You are being exactly what your brain was designed to be, efficient at seeking relief. The problem is that the relief is borrowed. It is always followed by the returning weight of the undone thing, which makes the next avoidance impulse even stronger. Now let us talk about dopamine specifically, because this is where most people's understanding of procrastination misses the deepest layer. Dopamine is the brain's motivation and anticipation chemical. It is what drives you toward goals and rewards. But modern life has created a dopamine problem that previous generations did not have to contend with at the same scale. Every notification, every scroll, every like, every short video, every quick digital hit delivers a small, fast, easy dopamine reward. Your brain begins to calibrate its expectations of reward based on what it experiences most often. When your brain is accustomed to fast, frictionless dopamine, the slow, effortful, uncertain reward of doing deep, meaningful work feels comparatively flat. Not because the work is less valuable, because your dopamine system has been tuned to a frequency that makes patients feel almost physically uncomfortable. Researchers call this dopamine dysregulation, and it is one of the primary neurological reasons why procrastination has become dramatically worse in the smartphone era. You are not fighting a character flaw. You are fighting a biological calibration problem created by an environment that was specifically engineered by the smartest behavioral psychologists in the world to maximize your time and attention at the expense of your focus and follow-through. There is also a psychological trap called self-handicapping that drives procrastination in high achievers more than almost any other factor, and almost no one talks about it. Self-handicapping is a defense mechanism first identified by psychologists Stephen Berglass and Edward Jones in 1978. Here is how it operates. If you never fully try, you never fully fail. When you procrastinate on something important, you preserve a psychologically comfortable story. If the result is disappointing, you can tell yourself it was because you ran out of time, not because you genuinely tried your best, and it still was not good enough. Procrastination becomes a buffer between your identity and the possibility of real failure. This is especially common in people who have built their self-worth heavily around their intelligence or their ability. Because if you are the smart one, the capable one, the one people expect great things from, genuine effort followed by genuine failure feels existentially threatening in a way it does not for someone who is more comfortable with imperfection. The avoidance is not laziness, it is protection, and it is costing you more than it is protecting you from. This connects directly to what psychologists call perfectionism-driven procrastination. The belief, often operating below conscious awareness, that if the output is not going to be excellent, it is better not to start. Perfectionism sounds like high standards. In behavioral reality, it functions as paralysis. The perfectly written email does not get sent. The thoroughly planned project never launches. The ideally timed conversation never happens. Because the bar for beginning keeps rising with every day that passes, and the gap between what you have done, which is nothing, and what you believe it should be keeps widening until the whole thing collapses under the weight of its own unrealized potential. Research from psychologist Gordon Flett has demonstrated that perfectionism is one of the strongest predictors of chronic procrastination, and that the relationship runs deeper than most people realize. Perfectionists are not procrastinating despite their high standards. They are procrastinating because of them. So now let us get into what actually works. And I want to be precise here, because most advice about procrastination treats the symptom instead of the mechanism. The first technique is called the 5-minute rule, and its power is neurological, not motivational. The rule is simple. You commit to working on the avoided task for exactly 5 minutes, not until it is done, not until you feel ready. 5 minutes, that is the entire commitment. Here is why it works at the level of the brain. The primary resistance to starting a task comes from the anticipation of discomfort, not the discomfort itself. The dread of sitting down to a difficult task is almost always worse than the actual experience of doing it. Once you begin, two things happen neurologically. First, the amygdala's threat response decreases because the brain realizes the predicted danger has not materialized. Second, a neurological phenomenon called the Zeigarnik effect activates. Your brain becomes more engaged with incomplete tasks than with tasks that have not started. Once you are in the work, your brain actually develops a mild psychological tension that drives you toward completion. The 5-minute rule is not a trick to make you feel better about starting. It is a neurological bypass of the avoidance response that was never about the work itself. The second technique is environment-based and comes from behavioral science research on what drives automatic behavior. Your surroundings are continuously triggering behavioral responses through conditioned associations. If you have ever tried to work in bed or on the same couch where you relax and watch television, you have experienced this directly. Your brain associates those physical environments with rest and passive consumption. Placing yourself in them and expecting disciplined focus is fighting your own neural conditioning. Dedicated work environments, even small ones, create what behavioral scientists call context-dependent memory cues. Your brain begins to associate that specific physical or digital environment with the mental state of focused work. Over time, entering that environment begins to shift your cognitive state automatically. Make the space for work distinct from the space for everything else, and you stop spending willpower on a battle your own associations are set up to win. The third technique addresses the dopamine calibration problem directly. It is called a dopamine fast, not in the extreme sense of eliminating all stimulation, but in the targeted sense of deliberately creating a gap between high stimulation activities and the task you need to focus on. Spend 5 to 10 minutes before starting important work doing something low stimulus. Sit quietly, walk without your phone, breathe deliberately. What this does neurologically is it allows your dopamine baseline to drop slightly so that the reward signal from engaging with meaningful work feels relatively stronger. You are not eliminating distraction. You are recalibrating your brain's sensitivity to reward so that the work itself has a fighting chance of feeling engaging rather than flat. Here is the truth about procrastination that will change how you see yourself if you let it. Every time you have procrastinated in your life, your brain was doing exactly what it was designed to do. It was protecting you from discomfort. It was seeking the fastest available relief. It was doing its job. The problem is not that your brain is broken. The problem is that the job description was written for a world without smartphones, without infinite digital stimulation, without the particular modern combination of high stakes and constant distraction. You are not behind. You are not fundamentally flawed. You are a human being with a very powerful brain operating in an environment that it was not built for. And now you have the map of exactly what is happening inside that brain and exactly where to intervene. Use it. Start the 5 minutes. Build the environment. Recalibrate the dopamine. Not because you have to. Because the thing you have been avoiding is waiting for you on the other side of a feeling that will pass the moment you begin. If this finally made sense of something you have struggled with for years, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe, because understanding your own mind is the beginning of everything.